Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Political Acumen. I really appreciate you coming and saying hello and listening to what I have to say. So let's jump right into the black narrative thing that's going through the media right now. and I think we're going to start seeing more of this with some of the southern states on the Democratic primary agenda, and with Trump looking forward to the general, you're going to start to see a lot of this type of these types of conversations happening in mainstream media, and certainly here as well. So who we have here is Candace Owens and Dr. Cornel West. And this segment, I'm about 5 minutes and 33 seconds in, and they're talking about Trump and how he's helped Black America. This particular section, well, I'll let it speak for itself. Let's go.
Nasty language. It's on both sides. I mean, it's on, if they call him a gangster, a traitor. I mean, so we can play that game all night long. But I do want to. I want to get this out. I want to get to this. The prevailing wisdom, I think Dr. West, highlighted this, is that race relations have deteriorated almost under this president. That's the thought. And that Obama was the great racial healer. Yet, in a new study by a pair of sociologists at UPenn, this is not some conservative outlet, they found that, quote, anti-black prejudice declined by a statistically insignificant degree between 2012 and 2016. But then after 2016, it took a sharp dive. There was also a general fall in anti-Hispanic prejudice, too. So, Professor West, to what do you attribute these findings? So prejudice is on the downswing, not on the upswing, at least in these first few years of Trump.
Well, based on this particular study, I'd have to examine how they gather their evidence and so forth.
So I went and checked it out, and this UPenn study was done by Daniel Hopkins, this gentleman on your screen now, and his recently graduated student. So I wouldn't necessarily say they're both professors, but we can debate that on another day. So this gentleman did the study, and it took me a minute, quite a few minutes actually, to find the actual study itself. And this is kind of some of the rhetoric that we see. So, hey, look, despite Trump's racial rhetoric, despite the fact that he says arguably a lot of bad things about brown and Asian and blacks and, basically, people of color, he's saying white prejudice has gone down. So, I found the page where it's linked to. There's a link in here that lets you go to a PDF version right here. And so this is the data. So I'm not here to dispute how you feel about Trump or not how you feel about Trump. More that look at the information, okay? So they're saying that all this information, this study is based on these 13 waves of panels. So they ask them a bunch of questions, they compile the data, and they get statistical propensities from all this information. So if you look at the top here, wave 1 through 5, it's you've got right around 20,000 participants in the first year between 2007 and 8, and the information that they're citing is basically since Trump took office up to when this panel was taken in 2018 in November. And if you look, there's 1,024 participants. And, 50 some percent of them are white. There was 500, I think it said, 537 respondents of these 1,024, individuals that had this panel given. So, I find it interesting, like they're willing to do, this looks to me like probably a project that the professor was doing for himself or some other reasons. And one of his students took interest in some of it. And so like the last year or two of her or his, I think it's a her, Samantha, someone, she wants to do a project and learn about statistics and how they do panels and polling and all this stuff, which is a great skill to know. But you have Fox News here, asking a professor about a study and professing it like it's proof. This is irrefutable proof that Trump can say whatever he wants, and you know, people are less racist in spite of it. Now, you can agree or disagree with that sentiment. I mean, I would argue that the numbers, that the actual data isn't substantial enough to make a claim like that. I mean, if you're going to poll 20,000 people over a year 5-6 times and take all that data, and then 10 years later after a new presidency only do panels for 1,000 people and use those two data sets to compare, I mean, most scientists would argue that that's not a great comparison, and definitely not one to create this idea that Trump's vernacular, his language, and how he speaks about people of color has no impact. But there's more.
But anti-Jewish attacks, anti-Muslim attacks, anti-Mexican attacks, and not just anti-black attacks, but also the police departments, the militarizing of the police departments, the withdrawal of the investigations when police do, in fact, shoot fellow citizens, whatever color they are, but disproportionately chocolate, disproportionately black and brown.
Right, that was
absolutely.
Under Obama, like
that's
Ferguson
true.
and
That's
all
true.
that stuff, right?
That's true.
It's not just
I'm just talking about continuities.
That's
yeah,
I'm talking about continuities.
Right. I do want to share this. This was a moment that I think, again, going back to what Candace has worked on and spoken about, and what Dr. West, I think you two could actually be happy about together. Happened at the White House, I think it was last month, and it was an event commemorating the First Step Act. Let's watch.
And I really thank you for signing that bill. Yeah. When y'all passed this, I could have fell through the floor.
I'm an example of a woman who has been given a second chance in life.
And it's an experience that I never forget.
2 months ago, I was in a prison cell, and I'm in the White House. Let's continue to make America great again.
Now, Dr. West, I mean, I don't think they were feeling xenophobia or mean-spiritedness. I think they actually found a president who was willing to work with people who really didn't even like him and didn't think he was probably going to accomplish much. And it got almost no coverage. I think we played it on our show, maybe a few other places, but it didn't get any coverage. What's your reaction to this?
So the First Step Act, you know, I had to look it up and kind of see some of it. And, you know, I'm going to try and move quickly through this because you can do a simple Google yourself. And if you're interested, take a look at it. But, you know, I find it interesting that the first part that pulls up on Google is what is it? And it talks about how employees can store their firearms, their personal firearms, at federal prisons. Like, that's one of the first thing it mentions. Okay. There's a date range, which is, you know, late 80s. There's certain DC codes that, you know, I didn't do a lot of deep research into this, but it looks like there's a lot of parameters around it. Reduces mandatory minimum sentences for nonviolent drug offenses and stuff, which is nice. You know, look, guys, I'm not saying that this isn't great. 3,100 inmates have been released, you know, and that's a great step in the right direction. My argument, however, well, let's go back here.
Seeing that.
No, I think that's a very important attempt to zero in on this vicious policy in the last 40 years of mass incarceration, punitive attitudes toward those engaged in various kinds of crimes. I've been blessed to teach in prisons for 37 years. The Raw Way to Step program of just in Norfolk. It's something that has an impact on the ground, and I'd give the president credit for that. It's not as if he has nothing to offer. It's just that the dominant orientation is still tied to what I'm critical of both parties. Because identity politics for me is milquetoast, neoliberal politics that don't talk about corporate power, don't talk about poverty, don't talk about militarism. But the Republicans still strike me as so cold-hearted, mean-spirited, and they're still tied to corporate power and Wall Street and won't hit poverty head-on. But when it comes to prison, when it comes to statistics, I give the president credit for that. But it's still small relative to what I'm looking for. I see it in neither both parties other than Brother Bernie Sanders, but that's another dialogue, as you know.
Bernie Sanders.
Well,
we won't go into that right now.
No, we won't go to that.
Yeah, so they don't want to go there because, actually Bernie has a plan that is larger than, what Trump is doing. So we can argue the merits of what Trump is doing, and you can say, well, he's doing good things. And I'm not going to argue that. If people that are being disproportionately or incorrectly sentenced based on, smoking a joint or having a couple grams of marijuana, do I think that they should spend 15 years in prison? Hell no. Hell no. And if they're already in prison and that's the circumstances to why they're in prison, should they stay in prison? Hell no. Like, come on, guys. Like, we're beyond this. But here's my argument is if you want something that is more comprehensive, Bernie's already said day one he's going to do an executive order and make marijuana no longer a part of the Schedule 1. He's going to expunge marijuana-related convictions, kind of like what the First Step Act does. And here's the thing too, guys, like First Step Act, it was a bipartisan effort. Like Trump, he's like, look what I've done for blacks. Okay, great. Yes, you signed off on the bill, but guess what? You didn't write the bill. And the way our system works is, House and Senate, they all have to agree and put it to your desk, and you signed it. Okay, well, that's bipartisan because the House is run by the Democrats right now. So it's this is a victory. The First Step Act is a victory, but I'm looking for more, and that kind of goes back to what Dr. West was saying is that he doesn't see it as enough, and Fox, I feel, is a bit disingenuous, probably more than just a bit disingenuous to suggest that Trump is doing everything he can and he needs or he deserves the black support. Hey, the 3,100 inmates and their families of those inmates, they probably do support Trump. But I look at that more as him using a situation to make political capital happen for himself, which who wouldn't? But he could take it further if he was truly for some of these things that he's using as political capital. Then he should be adopting some of the same policies that you hear from Bernie, and he won't. And so if you want me to vote for Trump, or if you want to get people to vote for Trump, he's got to be more bold than using, in my opinion, a political stunt by pulling in a few people to the White House and make them feel good, which is great. We want to be positive, but then using that through Fox News as a way to say, hey, look how great I am with the black community. So just my opinion, guys. You're welcome to give me a comment. I would appreciate a like and subscribe if you want to hear more content from me. This is not my full-time gig. I work a full-time job, and this is more of an outlet for me to create discussion and get some context on what we're talking about in this election cycle, and hopefully do a bit more of honing our acumen. Thanks, guys, and have a great day.